Did you read the title of the video or look at the thumbnail and feel a little confused or maybe annoyed? Good, then you're feeling like me. You're ready for this discussion. What's up everybody, D-Man back. Welcome to a brand new video, and today we're going to be doing another Godzilla Minus One discussion video. In this video, we're going to be talking about something that I have been asked about quite a lot in my comments, and when I say quite a lot, I mean a lot more than I ever thought I would be asked. Like over and over again, I keep getting asked to weigh in some variation, generally centering around the topic of, is Godzilla Minus One too popular? Is it overhyped? And is it a bad thing for the franchise overall? Some fans who are coming about this question are arriving at it as fans of Godzilla Minus One, people who really love the movie but are annoyed about the way that it has been received. Some fans are becoming a little resistant to the mainstream appeal of Godzilla Minus One simply because it's opened up the Godzilla franchise to wider audiences than ever before, and so people are discussing Godzilla in ways that you didn't really see normally. It's got a lot of people quite upset. In many cases, it's opened Godzilla up to entertainment YouTubers who badmouth the franchise with bad faith arguments. They don't really have any real knowledge to be discussing the franchise, and yet they're going to make a big video essay about Godzilla in which they get things factually inaccurate. They make bold assumptions about the movies that they just can't back up because they simply have not seen them, and they speak about one movie or another movie that they have seen as if it's the pinnacle of all Godzilla films, and they do that because they haven't seen the other Godzilla films, despite the fact they don't want to come out and tell you that. The reason that this doesn't catch me off guard too much is simply because entertainment YouTubers coming into the Godzilla space, taking over the discussion and swaying it their direction, it's nothing new. It's happened since the 2014 movie when Godzilla became wildly popular, even before I was making videos on Godzilla. When I got into the YouTube space and I started to rise in popularity, I watched the same kind of thing happen around the King of the Monsters era, as all of a sudden you had a couple different entertainment YouTubers start to rise up the ranks, gaining all the popularity. I often felt that they fell into one of two camps. They fell into the side where they are quite aggressive and they're kind of negative, or they fall into the camp where they are blindly positive about the movies. But what you'll notice is they're blindly positive or negative about certain movies because those are the only ones they've really seen. Quite a few people who have popularity within the entertainment circle who discuss Godzilla primarily, or even just as a heavy part of their channel, they're not as big of fans as they want you to believe. Like maybe they've only seen a couple of the movies. Maybe the reason that they're the biggest MonsterVerse fans in the world is simply because they're not telling you how they feel about the rest of the Godzilla movies, and so you just believe they're the biggest Godzilla fans. Or maybe they're not even believing the things they say, and they're just trying to be overly positive or overly negative because they know that's what's going to get you to click. I mean, Godzilla becoming popular, it opened Godzilla up to the internet space to where Godzilla is a big thing that can make you money if you do it right. The ways to do it right are to either fall on the extremely positive or extremely negative ends of the spectrum. I think it'd be way more popular if I stopped giving criticism of the movies and I just started blindly supporting them the way that some YouTubers do, but I'm not going to really do that because I want to give my honest opinions. So it's nothing really new. What is new is just how wide those videos are spreading now. That's really the only difference here. I've seen bad Godzilla video essays or bad faith arguments made about Godzilla as far back as 2014, even before I was making YouTube videos, and it annoyed the hell out of me. And I've seen people who truly are not the biggest fans of the Godzilla franchise pretending to be the biggest fans of the Godzilla franchise, and people buying it hook, line, and sinker and being like, that person's so awesome, we love them. They love these movies just like I do. Maybe they've only seen like 4 or 5 Toho films, but they've seen the MonsterVerse films, and so that's what they're going to focus on, and so that's what you're going to buy into. I don't know, my point is that it's nothing new to the franchise. It's just the only difference is now those videos are spreading wider than ever, and there's an easy solution to that. Just stop watching them as Godzilla fans. Yes, mainstream people might watch them, they might buy into these bad faith arguments for a minute, but a good movie will sway them away from that either way. If a good Godzilla movie is made, that's going to be the more powerful statement than some YouTuber discussing the film. And as fans, why don't you support good Godzilla video essays? Like, there are plenty of people in the fandom who make good Godzilla video essays that are worth clicking on and are either informative or entertaining or just downright fun. You can click on those instead. I've also seen, and this is where I get a little annoyed, the movie has opened up the franchise to certain types of people with certain beliefs, and they discuss the film in relation to Hollywood, and again, they're making bad faith arguments where their lack of media literacy just shines on, their underlying biases and prejudices rise to the surface, their overall buffoonery is exposed to us normal people, and it cringes us out of our minds. They slander and vomit bullshit onto the internet, and people buy it because people love rage. Rage bait's a big thing. Doing it in the Godzilla space is nothing new. The way that Godzilla Minus One has been rallied by certain audiences as this counter statement to Hollywood, I find to be absolutely ridiculous, especially because the director of Godzilla Minus One, Takashi Yamazaki's dreams are to work with Hollywood studios within the Hollywood studio system and to make big franchise films like another Godzilla film or even a Star Wars movie. He and Toho were not making a powerful anti-Hollywood statement with their film. In fact, they were simply discussing their experiences in their country. Godzilla Minus One is a heavily political movie, and many people will deny that when discussing the film because it doesn't support their agenda. The fact that I feel like I'm walking on coals here discussing this topic is a little embarrassing for all of the people that I'm discussing, but I'm gonna move it along. I do find that all pretty cringe. It's just people who don't understand filmmaking, it's people who don't understand Godzilla, and it's people who especially didn't understand Godzilla Minus One. Nothing you can really do about that, but that's a fire that's gonna burn very bright and fast, and then it'll be gone in a few months and we won't have to worry about it. I have seen people starting to turn on Godzilla Minus One. In particular on Twitter, I've seen Twitter users start to turn on the movie feeling like it's a fine movie, but it's being glazed, which is a term I didn't even know existed until like 3 weeks ago, which maybe shows that I'm getting a little old. There are a fair number of people who are like, it was fine, but people are like way overhyping it. I'd say in that case, maybe just kind of ask yourself, why is it that that movie's connecting with so many people and not yourself? And I wouldn't worry about the fact that they love it so much as the fact that maybe it's just not your taste, and then move on to movies that you do like. I've seen people who feel like the film is more popular than it deserves, even within the fan base, people feeling like either Shin Godzilla was a better representation of Godzilla for the modern day, or maybe Minus One just didn't do enough new things, or maybe Minus One wasn't as good as the Godzilla movies that they like. And again, that just comes down to personal preference. That is a case of the honeymoon phase simply wearing off. The movie's not as new anymore, and so it's not as fresh, and so you're not going to maybe feel as excited about it as you did the day you saw it. And then I've seen some people who don't like films that get nominated for awards. Like, it's reached that level of popularity where it's kind of like what happens when anything gets too popular, whether it be Stranger Things or Avengers Endgame or whatever. Whenever a good thing gets too popular, there's always people who just suddenly have pushback to that, and it's just people pushing back against the mainstream or the popular thing. They're gonna not like anything that gets too popular, so it kind of invalidates their opinions on anything. Why are some fans turning on Godzilla Minus One? And this is what I find very curious. This is what I see in my comments quite a bit. People being upset about one thing or another, and there are typically a few reasons for this. The number one thing I've seen people being upset about is people using Godzilla Minus One to put down the rest of the franchise, and I really get annoyed about that as well, especially because there are Godzilla movies that are just as well made and truly as fantastic as Godzilla Minus One. It's just that most of the time the people making these arguments haven't seen those movies. I think Mothra vs. Godzilla is on par in terms of quality as Godzilla Minus One. It's just a different type of Godzilla story, and so it comes down to ultimately what type of Godzilla story do you prefer? Are you more into the whimsical edge that Godzilla had at that point in his filmography, or are you into the very serious, keep it very strictly the original Godzilla style? That's going to be your kind of determining factor on where you fall on that. Or are you a fan of like modern filmmaking, or do you like retro filmmaking? That's again going to be another factor that plays into it. But for me, when you look at the time period that Mothra vs. Godzilla was made, the style of film that it is, and compared to Minus One, I think in terms of the time the two movies came out, they're the same level of quality, they're just different types of films. I think I ultimately lean towards Minus One. I'm one of the guys that likes that truly classic Godzilla, but that doesn't mean I don't appreciate the other stuff. And there are a lot of MonsterVerse, I don't know what to say, extremists who have been very worked up about the fact that Minus One has been used to attack the MonsterVerse a lot, and that's something I also find a little annoying. I myself have used Minus One in comparison to the MonsterVerse about some things that I think Minus One may be doing better. But it does annoy me when non-fans make those arguments, because again, a lot of the time they're made in bad faith, where I feel like those people don't know enough about the movies to be making those arguments. But I do understand. It feels like as Godzilla fans, we're constantly being attacked, and so we're constantly having to defend ourselves. And with the MonsterVerse, a lot of us have had to defend the MonsterVerse hardcore against the mainstream for years. Whether it be Kong Skull Island against the movies that came out in 2017, like Logan and Beauty and the Beast, that came out around the same time, and it was like, hey, this one's also really good, you should also go see Kong Skull Island, and it felt like we were having to defend it. Or whether it was King of the Monsters, which got completely overlooked simply because it came out in the biggest blockbuster year that cinema history has ever had. A lot of the time, Godzilla fans have had to be hyper defensive over the MonsterVerse, in order to try and make it stand out. And I feel like that's created this insecurity within a lot of Godzilla fans where maybe they feel the need to over project or over defend the movies. And so I often get attacked for criticizing the MonsterVerse or for saying good things about Minus One. And I feel like the difference is at least I'm not making bad faith arguments. At least I'm trying to just be critical because I truly just want what's best for these movies. I truly just want nothing but good things for Godzilla. So that's where I feel like it gets a little muddy. I see this question asked a lot. Are fans going to turn on Minus One? And I don't know. I think maybe some fans at the moment, especially with Godzilla X Kong right around the corner, some fans are going to champion that movie as an alternative to Minus One. Maybe some fans who feel a little attacked and they feel like Minus One is being used to put down the things they like. If you're not a fan of the overly serious Godzilla and you are a fan of the sillier, more exciting, action-packed Godzilla movies, I could see that being a reason why you maybe would turn on Minus One. I don't know why you'd turn on Minus One in that case. You can hype up the thing you like without having to put down something else, unless it's through the lens, again, of film criticism, in which case I don't have the biggest issue with that. If you got valid points to make, then make them, man. Will Minus One suffer a critical re-evaluation in a few years? Are people going to turn on the film in the few years in the mainstream? I don't think so. I don't think the mainstream people are at all. I feel like mainstream-wise, Godzilla Minus One is going to be very popular, and then people will remember that one fondly over time and be like, that was a good one. My fear is that some fans will turn on the film in a few years, like after this honeymoon phase has truly ended. The same thing happened with Shin Godzilla, where Shin Godzilla came out. People said it was the greatest Godzilla movie of all time. After a couple years, people were like, it wasn't as good as people said. King of the Monsters came out, fans rallied behind it, saying it was the most badass, coolest Godzilla movie of all time. And nowadays, it's actually kind of a hot take to say nice things about King of the Monsters, which really drives me crazy because that's a great film. Godzilla vs. Kong, very similar. Now the popular thing to do, especially in spaces like Twitter, is to criticize the movie rather than to say the things that you liked about it. And so I do think in a few years that some of the critiques I was worried about are going to rise to the surface. Before Minus One came to America, my big fear was that people would be disappointed in Godzilla's screen time. They'd be bored with the post-Ginza stretch of the movie before Godzilla shows back up, and they'd be sad that Godzilla doesn't have more destruction sequences. I was so convinced there was going to be so many quotes of people being like, he's only on land for like one scene, or Godzilla's so weak in this movie, he's the weakest Godzilla, he died to balloons, it's ridiculous. Balloons killed Godzilla, they took the god out of Godzilla. That kind of stuff. And I do feel like maybe in 5 to 10 years you could see a lot more of that discussion happening online where people have turned against the movie for one reason or another. Maybe just because of time, maybe because it becomes the popular thing to do. Whatever, I do think those criticisms could rise to the surface. I don't think they're very valid though. For me personally, I thought the film was truly just an incredible movie. I don't subscribe to those criticisms. Those were my big fears as a fan, that some fanboys would have those critiques. And I have seen some people have those critiques in very small pockets. So maybe that'll become more prevalent over time when people feel more comfortable criticizing the movie. I also know, talk about glazing a movie, some people maybe weren't as impressed with the VFX or the use of Godzilla or the screen time or the destruction sequences as they maybe have led you to believe, but they've only said that behind closed doors, which kind of goes back to what I was talking about at the start. It's easier to play the character of a guy who just loves everything and get people to really rally behind you than it is to have nuanced discussions about the films where you open yourself up to attack from both sides. So is Godzilla Minus One overhyped? Should it win the Oscars? Should it win any awards? No, I don't think it's overhyped at all. I think it was a really good movie. I truly think it was a great movie that opened Godzilla up to the world, that showed the world what Godzilla was meant to be in a way that has never really been done, and has made the definitive statement that this is what Godzilla films can be. You see, this is why Godzilla fans really love the franchise. This is why people talk about Godzilla films in such a high critical regard. This is why people talk about the films deserving to be analyzed. This movie becomes the statement for Godzilla fans like myself to say, the franchise has a really rich and long history of incredible movies that deserve analysis and deserve discussion and deserve their place in cinema history, and it's about time Godzilla gets his due. But if you're not one of the people that feels that way about the film, maybe if you're a fan on the opposite end of the spectrum who loves the extremely campy stuff, maybe you do feel differently. Should Godzilla Minus One win the awards? I would argue that every single award Godzilla Minus One has gotten, whether it be for best acting or for best sound design or for whatever, I'd say the film has earned. I think the film was truly an incredibly made movie. The soundtrack was amazing, the editing was amazing. I really love the pacing, the story, the script, the time period, the use of real world history, the acting, the characters, the special effects, all of it. For me, the whole thing worked incredibly well. The upcoming awards, should Godzilla Minus One win the IFMCA award, which is for the soundtrack nominations that we discussed in our previous Godzilla Minus One discussion video. Certainly the genre award, Godzilla Minus One should win the best science fiction fantasy film award. I don't know if the score should win the best score of the year, just because Oppenheimer's soundtrack was truly, truly amazing. Minus One, I think, is also an incredible soundtrack. I just just did my review of that soundtrack, but I feel like the Oppenheimer one actually pushed some real boundaries where it was like, oh, I didn't even know you could do that kind of stuff with music. So I feel like Oppenheimer maybe should win out of the two, but those would be the only two that I would hope would win. It's either Godzilla or Oppenheimer for me. And then as for should it win the Oscar, I think that, yeah, given the budget, the extremely small VFX crew, the innovation from the Japanese film industry, yes, Godzilla Minus One in context absolutely should win the award. Does that mean I think Godzilla Minus One has the most flawless VFX of the year? Not really. There are some shots that still stick out to me as being a little CG. Godzilla's movements are a little stiff at times. And so for me, I feel like the truly groundbreaking and astonishing accomplishments done by the creator maybe deserve the Oscar. But again, those are the only two films that I feel like should win that award. And if it's not one or the other, I'm gonna feel like a big snub has happened. And I feel like if it's either Godzilla or the creator, Gareth Edwards and Yamazaki being friends in real life, I feel like they'll be there for each other to hype each other up, and it'll be way easier for fans to swallow if Godzilla loses to the creator than it will be if Godzilla loses to something else like Napoleon or whatever. Not saying Napoleon VFX are bad, I'm just saying given the context, it's a little more impressive that Godzilla did what it did. So was Godzilla Minus One a net negative for the franchise? Here are the cons that people bring up. It set the bar too high in terms of quality. It tells a very specific type of Godzilla story, and now that's all people are going to want moving forward, and it makes the MonsterVerse look bad. To counter all of that, I would say it has raised the bar in terms of quality in a good way, and raising the bar in terms of quality is a good thing. Asking for better stories, more well told, nothing wrong with that. We should be doing that as fans, otherwise the franchise is going to slip and slip and slip and wind up really bad and then have to go away for a while. It did tell a very specific type of Godzilla story, but I believe it told that story to the best possible standards, meaning that there really isn't a need to recap that story or to retell it anytime soon moving forward. I think it has told that story, and so now we can bloom the franchise into new directions, especially for Toho to start doing new things with Godzilla again. And I don't think it's a bad thing that maybe people want Godzilla films to be a little more tonally serious or a little more sci-fi oriented. I don't think that's a bad thing at all. Is it a little limiting? Maybe a little bit, but the MonsterVerse is pushing some major boundaries. Even Toho with the anime films have pushed some major boundaries in terms of science fiction. I think that there is still exploration with Godzilla at the moment, and so I don't feel like the franchise has yet become stale in the Reiwa era. So I don't feel like that's going to be a bad thing yet. And then finally, I don't think it's hurt the MonsterVerse yet. I think what it has done is it's helped people reevaluate their criticisms of the MonsterVerse so that they can have better critiques moving forward, so that they don't have to spout nonsense bullshit anymore like there's not enough monsters. I'm glad that Minus One has become the definitive counter statement to the argument that the monsters aren't doing enough. There's not enough monsters, not enough monster screen time. Who cares about the story? We just want monsters. Who cares about the humans? Get them out of here. Hey man, a good movie with a good story, you're gonna care about the humans. And I think it's completely valid that Minus One has recontextualized a lot of people's arguments to say, oh hey, maybe I didn't have an issue with the human screen time in Godzilla 2014. Maybe they were just boring characters. Nothing wrong with that. Now, I do think it's a little unfair that Minus One is being used against the MonsterVerse to the degree it is, but again, a lot of the people making those arguments are making them in bad faith, and those videos are gonna burn bright and burn fast. I don't think they're gonna leave a lasting impact, so who cares? How was that discussion? What do you guys think? I don't know, comment your thoughts down below. I'm sure I've either gotten a lot of people really upset, or maybe people are gonna be pretty chill with this one. I actually don't know how people are gonna respond, so let me know down below. I think Godzilla Minus One's an amazing movie. To be clear, I also freaking love the MonsterVerse movies. I think they're also super awesome, especially King of the Monsters. I really love King of the Monsters and Kong Skull Island, of course, but I'm talking Godzilla here. So I don't know. Comment below, let me know what you guys think. I'm very curious to hear what everybody's thoughts are. I would love to give a huge thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. If you want to support the Patreon, you can use the link in the description below, and through the Patreon, you can get early access to content, access to the Discord community, and more. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you guys next time for the next one. D-Man out.